Preserving the life stories of our closest relatives is a priceless gift one generation bestows upon another. Through the magic of video, we're able to preserve the experiences, knowledge, and wisdom of our elders. We're given the opportunity to get to know who those relatives were and the legacy they pass along to their children, grandchildren, and beyond.
We live in a revolutionary age in which we can preserve memory. After all, in the 15th century, the best you could be was man in a red hat, as painted by some master, and we don't know anything about you. And the people who came after you simply know you from the painting. In the 19th century, we got photography, and we've all got old photographs of rather stiff-looking ancestors. But now, we can send into the future a message about ourselves alive, on tape, speaking, recalling other family memories. We can make a whole thread which we send on into the future. We send a message to tomorrow. All of us want to be remembered, and this is the first generation that can be almost totally remembered. You know, for people of my generation, the past is a kind of frozen yellow block of old faded pictures which remind us of a past which doesn't move for us. I mean, here, for instance, is my grandfather and what the writer S.J. Perelman called a Schrafft's Luxuro ice cream sundae come to life. And he was the kind of fellow who would have appreciated her, and when I see the two together like this, I think about him and how I look like him but wasn't much like him.
I see the resemblance in the smile.
I guess that's it, and in the ragged mustache.
Well, the mustache is more obvious.
He went up to girls like that and said, "Hello, I'm Hayward Broom," and I go up and say, "Hello." They look funny, the people of the past. Here, Uncle Campbell and Uncle Belvedere, of the three, they all came from Scotland. My grandfather stayed in.
That's interesting. I see the resemblance.
He stayed in Manhattan. One went to Brooklyn. One went to Australia.
Is that when your mother under...
Yes, so here, this is my mother.
That is such a classic one of the period, I think.
Well, it's taken by the great theatrical photographer Van Damme, and you will see she has that hale nose, which also you see the hale nose in my Uncle Richard, the one who had...
And he was her brother.
He was her brother, he had five. We think that maybe the nose was from the fact that great-grandfather Riley was maybe a Cherokee Indian. That may explain why we have the nose like the Nichols.
He's very, very handsome. You mentioned at one point, I remember in one evening, you were saying that he married 5 times?
Yes, and they were all beautiful, but his mother, my grandmother, didn't approve of them. So it was only the 5th one that he got to stay with. But he was successful in love, he was successful in having 3 children. He was successful in everything except on the stage, where he was good, but was always in the wrong play.
Is this one you?
That is...
This is such a sweet picture.
This is myself when young, full of hope, 65 pounds, of neurotic little boy.
But it makes me want to get in there and get on the horse behind you.
Well, by now, this is in Tucson, Arizona, where I went to school in the early 1930s. And in back of it now, where you see that mountain, is probably some suburb with 500 houses.
Oh, right, the development.
But it was the last of the Wild West.
Yeah.
But all these people they stay still. We need, only memory makes them move for us. In memory, they come alive. The great uncle throws the shot, and we'll find out how far he got with it. Now, of course, today, we can make people move.
Well, speaking of pictures, I did ask you over because I just got a video camera. And I was wondering if you are amenable. I would love to try and interview you.
Now you've got the video guide there, do I see?
Yes, I found this. It's the tape, it's the guide, and it's a genealogical chart. It's called the Complete Video Reflections Guide, and I found it was very well done, very easy to follow, and some good questions. So if you don't mind, I would love to try it on you.
Ask me. I may refuse to answer, but then you'll ask another.
Oh, super.
And
that
somehow,
would be great.
between us, we will reach into the past for whoever sees the pictures at some future time.
Well, I thought it would be good if we went into the dining room, because I know
Okay.
you love that room, and I thought you'd be most comfortable there.
Like to be comfortable, like to be interviewed. Let's
Oh,
go.
Woody, thank you.
Helpful hints for recording on videotape. Choose your location carefully, whether indoors or out. Backgrounds should not be too busy. A neutral background will give you the best results.
If you need extra light, you can pick up one of these reflector lights in just about any hardware store, and they're simple. You set them on the back of a chair, on a door frame, and as you can see, they're inexpensive and they work beautifully, and this is all you're really going to need. It's very easy to set up a tripod. You just undo the latch, pull out the leg, snap it back. Do this with all three. Open it up, set it down, push this part down, and then you're ready for the camera. Just tighten the camera onto the tripod. You want your lens facing the subject. You've got your handle back here so that you can adjust your shot.
Be sure your subject is framed properly. Place the camera within 8 feet of your subject. White balance your camera if you do not have an automatic white balance setting. When beginning the tape, create an introduction by writing a title on a mat board. Try to eliminate all unnecessary noise by turning off the TV, the radio, and air conditioner. Take the phone off the hook for the duration of the interview. Here are some suggestions for a successful interview. We suggest you start the interview with a close-up of an old photo. Begin the interview using the Video Reflections Guide.
In the course of a long career, I guess I've interviewed over 1,000 people. And what wisdom I've accumulated over that time is that the good interviewer, like the boxing referee, controls the flow of the action without being noticed. In other words, the interviewer is the secondary person. The interviewer's job is to make the subject happy and voluble, which means you should have some sort of thread from the beginning, knowing what direction you're going. What information are you eliciting? You don't want to just spread around. You're moving toward a goal, the goal of finding out a particular thing, whether it be family history or the story of some success or event. You must know and keep as much as you can the questioning on that line. You have to make the subject happy. If this calls for you to abase yourself slightly by showing an ignorance that you don't have so that they can correct you, make them happy. Never ask a question which stops the flow, because then you have to start the interview over again and it becomes unhappy and uncomfortable. Try not to ask questions which can be answered yes or no, because then you have to think up another question very quickly after that. Mostly, though, you make the person open up to you and you do whatever is necessary. You are not the important person, the subject is.
Keep your questions short. Listen with interest. This is the key to a successful interview. Don't be concerned about following the guide exactly. Some of the questions may not necessarily be applicable to every interview. Attempt to keep the interview in chronological order. If the question is not being answered satisfactorily, rephrase it. Learn to evaluate pauses. Be patient before asking your next question. If you're looking for more information, use variations of where, how, when, and why. If you find that some of the words expressed by the interviewee are not clear, repeat them. Try not to show approval or disapproval. Allow your subject to speak without interruption. As Woody so eloquently stated, remember that the person you're interviewing is the star. Do not dominate the interview, only guide it. And speaking of Woody, here's one more very helpful hint from him.
I think that to make a real contribution to the public is to tell them mostly sort of technical things, like don't take too short a shot. Most people using a movie camera or a camcorder who are not professionals take very short shots, and it's choppy. That's really the best advice that we didn't perhaps give when we spoke before, is be leisurely. Make a long record. You can always cut it down, but make it nice and long, and make it full. Try to get everything, and then you can shape it into something.
Would you like some tea?
Thank you.
And how do you take it?
With nothing, just as it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fine. Now, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I really appreciate it.
I'm pleased to do it.
And you're comfortable in the chair?
Just fine.
Okay. If you want to look over the video reflections guide while I set up the shot, I'll be right back.
A guide is a very valuable thing in starting to learn how to do this.
Okay. Perfect. Not too high, not too low. Mid-shot, I think it's called.
There you are.
Thank you. There are 75 questions. They're all good, but I'm going to start with these few. What's your full name?
My full name is Haywood Hale Broom. That I took not to be confused with my father, and also to avoid being Haywood Broom III, which sounds like a monarch and did not suggest the rather unattractive little boy that I was.
Oh, you sort of answered the second question because it says, who are you named after? So when and where were you born?
Well, I was born in New York City, but I was conceived in Paris, where my parents were war correspondents. He with the New York Tribune and she with the Chicago Tribune. They came back to New York so I could be born here and be president of the United States.
Were they married there?
Oh yes, oh yes. They were married before they went overseas. And my mother was a feminist and kept her own name, Ruth Hale, and that's where I got the Hale and Haywood Hale Broom.
Sounds very romantic.
Well, yes, and my father didn't go back because General Pershing said he never wanted to see him again. Perhaps because he wore a fedora hat with his uniform.
Oh, this is wonderful. Well, how far back can you trace your family?
Well, in an uninteresting way. My father's family goes back 800 years in Scotland. The first Broom, then called, I think, Lebrun, came over from Normandy, not with Duke William the Conqueror, but with his wife, the Countess Matilda. They were given a very small estate, and they stayed there ever since, until my grandfather came to this country. They seem to have done nothing.
How do you get the 800 years information? Because there's a genealogical chart that goes along with this.
Well, an old lady in Colston wrote to me asking me to get some genealogical information in New York, and I wrote back. That's when I found out about the 800 years. I also found out that the only thing anybody in the family had ever done was that one 100 years or so ago put on a campaign to wear white tie instead of black tie with evening kilts. That was his whole life.
Was there any reason behind this, or?
Only the reason that we choose what we think is important. Life, sport is a shared delusion. People think it means a great deal that Harvard should beat Yale or Yale should beat Harvard. And this old gentleman thought it was important that you wear the more formal wear with your evening kilts as perhaps an honor to Bonnie Prince Charlie.
I hope he looked good in a white tie. Now, do you know any family legends or stories that have been told and retold besides the white tie?
Well, on my mother's side, we are supposed to be descended from the Black Douglas, a Scottish warrior who was feared because he cut off the thumbs of English archers. And it is said that Scottish mothers used to say, "Hush ye, hush ye, the Black Douglas will get ye." And it was also said that three of her ancestors, three felons, came to early Virginia where they married three sisters, making a very complicated family history.
I'll say.
That's pretty good for legend.
Yes. Who had the most important influence on you when you were growing up?
I think it would have been either one of two friends of the family. One was an actor named Ed McNamara, and the other was Paul Robeson. They were like uncles to me, and I liked and trusted them immensely. I will say just this of McNamara, and this is the kind of thing that should go into a history, that someone once said of him, I think it was Mark Connolly, the playwright, he was the greatest container for love and affection that I ever met. And each of us would like to be that.
And at what point did you know Robeson? He's such a
Well, when I was a very
star.
small boy, he was an actor, he wasn't a singer. And he used to come to our house and play and sing. It was my father who suggested that he give his first concert.
It's wonderful. If you could give an inspirational or philosophical message about life and love, maybe especially love, to future generations, what would you like to?
Well, I am not a particularly inspirational person, but I think if I were to give a thing about love, I would not anymore believe, as I did when young, that you fell in love once or that it just had to be one person. The more of it you can get, the more of it you can give, probably, particularly your old age, will be happier.
I love you.
Thank you. Let me
Thank
tell you, you have been very professional indeed.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you saying that.
Well, that's the best compliment I can give you.
And then if I can ask one more favor.
Yes, of course.
You have a signature jacket
I do.
that you wore when you were broadcasting, and I'd love to just show you in that.
All right. If you got it,
Wonderful.
produce
I
it.
do. I'll be right back.
It was originally created at the Lexington racetrack, Keeneland racetrack in Lexington, Kentucky, where a man was showing the broadcaster there a book of samples, and I asked the Hindu tailor if he would take all the samples out of the book and make them into a jacket for me. And there it is, as you can see. There are very many things for which we can be remembered, but I think probably I will be remembered as the man with the funny coats.
It's terrific.
Thank you. It's colorful, at least.
Give yourself the credit you deserve and make a title board such as this. Please remember to fill out the genealogical chart we've included, and you might want to make copies and share it with the rest of your family. Most of all, trust your instincts. The additional spontaneous questions you'll ask will flow naturally out of the interview. Believe me, if I can do it, you can. And you will not only do a great interview, but you will be giving your family the gift of immortality.